Well, now it's over to our next speaker. Marion McCormack is a senior civil servant now. She works in the Economic Development Directorate of the Scottish Government. She's based in Glasgow. She's head of sponsorship and better regulation in the Enterprise and Cities Division, and she functions as HIE's sponsor team within the Scottish Government. Marion is here tonight as a member of the panel which has drawn up the criteria and approved the recruitment processes for the 3 vacancies which HIE is about to advertise. The Scottish Government is keen to attract talented people from all walks of life to serve on boards of public bodies. That's why we're all here tonight. And Marion has come to tell us about the work of the Public Appointments team. Please give her a very warm welcome, Marion McCormack.
Well, the first thing that will become obvious is I'm not from Highlands and Islands area. I'm an Ayrshire lass. And the connection I have to High is that I have the responsibility outlined there for sponsorship, but I also get involved in all of the recruitment rounds for board members, not just for High, but for Scottish Enterprise, Visit Scotland, and I also have responsibility for SDI. So I have some pretty big boards to look after, and I've also been heavily involved in the work that I'm going to talk to you about, which is about the public appointments process. We've been doing a lot of work around diversity, and I've actually brought along this to show you that we actually walk the walk as well as talk the talk. A website for you to go on to is www.onescotland.org/5050 by 2020. And that's where you will find a lot of information around what we're doing on diversity. And also, if you go onto Scottish Government's website, you will find the original speeches from First Minister when she introduced Programme for Government. Now, public appointments processes are a formal process, and we can't do anything about that. Ministers are involved, and the Commissioner's Office are involved from the point of view of they will set a rate for each appointment round, and they will determine whether an official from the Commissioner's Office gets involved in the whole of the round from the planning session through to interview, or whether they just want to be involved at the planning session. Now, we have a very good relationship with Bill Thompson, the Commissioner, and the Code of Practice for Ministerial Appointments to Public Bodies in Scotland outlines the criteria that we have to adhere to when we're looking at public appointments. So that's the starting point. If you're thinking about applying for a board, the baseline is that Code of Practice governs the board appointments process. Now, Bill's been incredibly supportive with us, and he's helped us look at increasing diversity. He's also worked with us with changing the chemistry to try and widen our audience, and also to contact people that we haven't previously managed to contact in previous board rounds, because government wants to learn from how we've done previous rounds before. We want to make it better. We want to make it easier for people to apply. But the process is formal in that ministers actually start involvement in the process before we even have the panel pulled together. So when we're doing succession planning with boards, and we're talking about what do they need in order to think about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what do they need now in the immediate future as well? And they have to think about which board members are about to retire, or which board members are going to leave, or which board members are going to move about the roles within the board. So you heard earlier on they talked about different roles like the audit committee, or there's the remuneration groups. Now, if board members move about, then that creates a gap for a board member to fill, and you can only shuffle people about so long before you have to actually fill some gaps. In terms of how we fill them, the Minister gets involved before we have the panel. So the Minister will give us a very clear steer on what the Minister's expectation is for that particular body's board. Now, that doesn't mean that the Minister will come back and say, And this is where the misconceptions come from. The Minister won't come back and say, we need more women, so it's got to be women. The Minister's not going to do that. What the Minister's going to come back and say is, the body's strategic plan has these things in the horizon. The skill sets that I think they need to deliver that plan are around, and it could be digital economy, it could be, we've talked about audit committee, if you have a retiring chair of your audit committee, it could be financial skills. So the Minister will come back thinking about where that body's going in the future and the type of strategical roles that he needs on a board to deliver that. And it could be it could be in terms of, we had a minister come back on one of the rounds and they come back and they said, we've got programme for government, we've got a lot of things in there around diversity, around the business pledge. Where are the skills around the board on workforce planning, on different areas of diversity? And we had to look at that board and look at where the balance lay, and we were able to go back to the Minister and say, actually, they've already got that skill set, it's just not articulated in the actual skill set we had for the board. But the Ministers are getting involved at the earliest point. In terms of going through the process, we have a panel set up for each round. Now, the panel has to have someone from Scottish Government, and they normally will chair the panel. Also, we will have normally the chair of the current board of that body. And then we will have a third person normally, and that will be someone independent. Now, that could be someone independent, or it could be someone appointed by the Commissioner's office if the Commissioner wants to appoint someone to go through the whole process, because they are completely independent as well. So your independent person can be either someone from the Commissioner's office or an independent other person. And an ideal example of that is the high recruitment process that we're going through, and it will be advertised shortly, as Lauren said, because we've just had the Minister come back to us in relation to that. And that panel has a chair from Scottish Government, which is Una Gill, and it has Professor Long Creer, and also we have Ian Ross, who's the current chair of the Board of Scottish National Heritage. So we have a balance on that board, and we're working with other public bodies to ensure. So I'm sure that Lauren will probably be invited along on other public body appointments to help out with that. In fact, he has been, haven't you, with other public bodies appointments recently? And the high appointments. Now, in terms of the process, there is an application which can be filled in online, but it can also be downloaded and you can fill it in on a Word template, because the online one some people find quite difficult to use. We can't do anything about that. It's a formal process. The types of knowledge and understanding that we're looking for in terms of the high appointment process. We're looking at people who have the ability to contribute to the development of strategy and to provide leadership, direction, support and guidance. The ability to bring new and fresh insights and perspectives to the work of High. The ability to engage at a board level, challenge constructively and inform effective decision making. The ability to engage effectively with a range of customers and stakeholders and be an ambassador. So if any of those words chime with you, they're very, very similar for most public bodies, some of these things. Being an ambassador. Sue spoke earlier about her role and how she actually engages with stakeholders and engages with ministers on looking at particular policy areas. There is a huge ambassadorial role in being a board member. And I think Lauren will agree that you never stop being a board member. Even when you change over to do something else, you're still thinking like a board member of the organisation that you're a board member for. In terms of the the advertising of the role. High's role will go live hopefully within the next week. And once we get the advert live, there will be a closing date on there. Between when the advert goes live and the closing date, I believe, Tanya, you're going to talk about some of the workshops. We found it very successful for other board recruitment rounds where there were some workshops Tanya ran which helped with that formal filling out of the form process. Now, in terms of the time frame, these things take a while. So even though we're looking for the advert to go live, you could be talking about November by the time that the panel actually meet and the interviews January. So it's not a quick process, not at all. And I'm going to steal a bit of thunder here and say that I've actually got another round on that's about to be advertised as well, Scottish Enterprise. We're going to be advertising for board members. So you've now heard 4 public bodies who are all looking for people. And the Scottish Enterprise Essential Skills actually bring out something, I think it was Sue, you pointed out that in organisations sometimes they advertise for something very specific. And the Scottish Enterprise ones, they're specific for one of the posts is recent and relevant financial experience, including serving on or chairing effectively an audit committee. So they have a gap in their board that they're looking to fill. But that doesn't mean that applies to the other vacancy that they would have. So that only applies to one. I suppose what I'm saying to you is when you read the adverts online, don't be put off by the formality of the process. Read very carefully what are the essential criteria, what are the desirable criteria, and see how you fit into that. Is it the kind of organisation you want to work for? Do you think those essential skills fit with you? How many of the desirables fit with you? If not all of them, it doesn't matter. They're desirable. You might only connect with some of them. But the important thing is, and I think Lorne highlighted it when he was talking about High as an organisation, you have to feel something for the organisation. You have to want to work for them. Because if you don't connect with the organisation, being a board member is going to be quite difficult because you have to feel something for the organisation. And it's something that in all of our appointment rounds, when I do some of the sifting and stuff like that, it comes across in the applications. People feel passionate about the organisations they want to be a board member of, and they either have a connection or want to have a connection with that organisation in terms of they understand what the organisation is trying to achieve. And the last thing I want to say is just really around, never forget that all of these things about applying for the board membership, and then if you're successful and you become a board member, you're never on your own. There's a whole support network around you. So for instance, applying for the board membership, we work with Changing the Chemistry on the workshops at the application stage. If you're successful in becoming a board member, each organisation has a full induction programme for board members. And even when you become a board member, you have not only the support of the organisation and your board, but you're linked into all the other public bodies across Scotland and the national public bodies. So you're linked in across a huge network. In addition to that, you have teams like the team I have who sit in government, who provide support from a government side. So we provide support in terms of the formal processes that government does and all of that. So I suppose what I'm saying is don't be put off by the formal government bit of the process. Please, if you think that the criteria fits you as a person, think carefully about applying, because we want more applications from people who want to do the job. And the other thing that I'd like to just highlight is in terms of if you're thinking about applying for a board role, don't just think about and I know they won't like this, don't just think about the bodies we've mentioned tonight. We have a public appointments website, and appointment rounds go up all the time for all the public bodies. So if you've looked at these public bodies tonight and you think, I kind of chime with them, or I'm not quite sure, I want to see what other public bodies look like, go onto that website and you will see all the appointment rounds that are live at the moment. And you'll be able to actually see what essential criteria they've put, what type of board member they're looking for. And then you can compare them against what High's looking for, or what SNH are looking for, or even Scottish Enterprise, or even, what was the other one? Forestry Commission. But it's just really to let you know that from a public appointments point of view, I just want more people to apply for public appointments, because we need to increase the diversity on our boards across Scotland, not just in these bodies, but across the whole range of bodies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Marion there. I would just like to say that she mentioned the Public Appointments Scotland website. You can also sign up to get an email alert, so that if you just sort of go onto their website and say, I'd like to know, then you do get an email every now and again as soon as one of these appointments comes up, and it's then sitting in your inbox. You don't have to remember to keep going back to check. I have lists and lists of questions that I could ask. I'm aware that we're running close to time. If any of you have been filling in your question forms, if you could just wave them in the air, we'll get them in from you now, and we'll start processing those, so that as soon as Tanya has spoken, we can get straight into the Q&A session, and then move straight on to networking, mingling, canopies and tea and coffee. Not necessarily everybody's favourite part of the evening, but always a very good one. Thank you very much for those questions.